focused on staying on the line, I can't fulfill my assignment. But my God is big enough to handle my fault, my strokes, grubs, my mess ups, because he's already prepared for what I might do. He knows what I'm going to do before I do it, and he already made preparation for me before I get there. What follows darkness is light. That darkness is the indicator that light is getting ready to shine. So there it is in Genesis, when darkness was upon the face of the deep, and God in the spirit form moved upon the face of the waters, and then God said, let there be. Because darkness precedes the light. Are you understanding what I'm saying? But he needs the darkness there so that God can move upon the face of the deep, so that the shift can take place. Listen, look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor that shift take place in the darkness. Oh God, y'all didn't hear what I just said. Everybody's not going to see the shift that's happening. They see the chaos, but they don't see the shift. They see all the craziness going on in your life, but they don't understand that underneath the darkness, God is moving in secret. He's moving in quiet. He's moving in the hidden places. He's moving in the cracks and the corners and the crevices. He's moving in places that you cannot see. And when the light comes, they're going to see a new order. But untying. And so the universe then has no choice. First attribute of the secret place. The secret place is a place of revelation. It makes you free because it awakens you and makes you consciously aware that everything that you thought was holding you you in the illusion. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's so good to see. Well, there's a handful of us that are on here. I was about to say all of you, but all of us are not here. But it's good to see those of you who have tuned in with me this morning. I'm glad you're here. I'm greeting you from the West Coast, where it's 6 o'clock in the morning out here. So, but I did not want to miss our empowerment session. So I committed myself to getting up and making sure that I was here on the air to meet all of you this morning. So it's 9 o'clock there, 6 o'clock in the morning out here. It's still dark outside, and the sun won't rise for another hour or so. But I am happy. Man, I've been having such a good time. If you've been following me on Facebook and you've seen some of the live and videos that I've put up and pictures, it's been a really great experience ever since I've gotten here. For those of you who know me, you know that I used to live here some years ago. And so coming back here, I hadn't been back in quite some time. Coming back here has just been refreshing. Had the opportunity to connect with some old friends, to visit some of my old stomping grounds. And then I also went to some of the other touristy areas so that I could share with those of you who follow some of the different attractions and things that you may have wanted to see out here. I told you I'd bring you along with me, and I have fulfilled my promise in doing just that. I know the lighting is not the greatest, but remember, I'm in a hotel, so what you see is what you get. Not the best lighting, but we're here. And so we went through Hollywood Boulevard and Beverly Hills and other areas just to kind of show you, and went out to Santa Monica Pier to the beach out there, and we showed some pictures from there. And yesterday had the opportunity, I wasn't even aware that the festival was this weekend, but that the Taste of Soul Festival was going on. And so we went out to be a part of that as well, and showed you some video as well as pictures from that. One of the largest festivals in this area that's held, and a gathering of chefs and cooks and creators and people from all over gathered all in one place. They set down a huge section of Crenshaw Boulevard, and that's one of the main thoroughfares here in the city of Los Angeles, and just tons and tons, as you can see from the picture, tons of people and tons of vendors and others who were out there, food from everywhere of every kind. You know I love food, so had a good time with that, as well as other creatives and artists and that were there. A gospel fest going on one side, jazz in another place, reggae in another place, hip hop in another place. It's just a fantastic festival. People from a wide swath of humanity, all diverse races and cultures, all coming together in one place. It was just absolutely fabulous. Had a great time experiencing that, and I hope that you enjoyed the pictures and videos that we showed you from there as well. So it's been fun. It's been a good time. It's been a really good time. I'll be back in DC on the East Coast next week. So when we come back on again on Thursday, I'll be back on the East Coast, and things will be back to whatever normal is. We'll call that normal, but what is familiar? How about that? So I know that the lighting may not be that great, nor the sound, because I'm not in the studio, so I'm using the sound from the laptop and the lighting here in the hotel. But let me know, if you will, the few of you that are on, if you can hear me clearly. Go ahead and write that in the comments for me if you can hear me clearly. I want to make sure that you can at least make out what I'm saying.
we're missing quite a few people. Yeah, it is early, Toya. It is very early. And thank you, Toya, for always just being right here and present and tagging any and everybody. If all the people that you tagged actually jumped on, I tell you what, we would have a crowd of people that are tuned in and listening at this point. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me clearly? Can you hear me at all? There's the question. Okay, thank you, Diana. Diana's like she can hear me fine. Great, 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 great. Hi. Don't tell. Oh, the internet kind of blinked out, came back on. Hey, John, haven't seen you on in a while. Again, I'm using the hotel Wi-Fi. It's a little bit spotty, so hopefully it'll hold up throughout the entire conversation and we'll be able to get through it. We're going to do the very best that we can here. Again, we're not in the studio, so I have to kind of just deal with the picture, the sound, the Wi-Fi, the way that it is. But that's okay. We're going to have a good conversation anyway. All right. So today, we're going to begin a new conversation or new discussion centered around the path to truth. And you see that I tagged that with critical thinking, that the way that we arrive at actual factual truth is through a method called critical thinking. I was having a conversation with a dear friend, old friend of mine here in Los Angeles, and we were talking about our own personal growth and evolution and development spiritually. And I said to her that I committed the cardinal sin when it comes to the religious world, especially Christianity, and that is I started thinking critically because the religious community, especially Christianity, the one thing that they frown upon more than anything else is your actual thinking. Religion actually depends upon you not thinking. It depends upon you just being emotional, and then you're forming an emotional attachment to a particular ideology, a set of beliefs that will inform your thoughts, words, and deeds, inform your outlook, your perspective, and that you will just follow along like sheep, if you will, following behind whoever happens to be in leadership at that point. They actually thrive and depend upon your not asking questions, not using your mind or employing logic, but for you to suspend all logic and just accept what's being said to you at face value and go along and formulate your beliefs based upon the foundation that they've given you upon that is derived from mythological stories, parables that have been handed down from one generation to the next one without ever examining them as to whether or not they are actually true. And ladies and gentlemen, each of us arrive at our own truth, absolutely, and live in the reality of our own truth. We live in the matrix of the reality that we create ourselves that's based upon our own embraced, accepted truths. But then there is universal truth, or the truth, that we all need to be consciously aware of. That gravity is a universal truth. Okay, that is a universal law that involves a universal truth, and so you don't just you don't defy the laws of gravity simply by believing something different and jumping off a building. You actually define the law of gravity when you jump off that building, because that truth is going to definitely bring you hurling to the ground. Okay? And so what we want to do is, and what I am striving to do in these conversations that we're going to have moving forward, is to explain what critical thinking is, and then let's talk about how we can employ that critical thinking, this mechanism, this tool, in arriving at universal truth that we can live in, apply to our lives, and help us to see clearly moving forward. I'm going to use as a basis a particular text that's taken from the Bible. It is purported that Jesus says in John chapter 8, I think it's verse 32, and you shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Let me unpack that for just a second. And you shall know, that's taken from the Greek word genesko, from which the root word of that is genio, from which you get the word generation. But it has to do with intimacy and connection and family line. The actual definition for the word genesko is to allow something to become aware of something, to feel, receive, or perceive a thing. And so when he says, and you shall know, you shall allow, become aware of, feel, perceive, or become intimately acquainted with, you shall know, become intimately connected or acquainted with, aware, consciously aware of the truth. And the truth, so we're talking about universal truth. You shall know the truth. You shall become intimately acquainted with the truth, and the truth shall make you free, not set you free, as though you have been held captive, literally held captive, but that it will make you free. That is, that it releases you from the imaginary, self-imposed captivity that you've created for yourself because you have submitted yourself to the ideologies and outside influences of culture, religion, environment, family, friends, trauma, experiences, and so on and so forth. And so those things inform your perception, inform your perspective, and you can kind of imagine and create these constraints, these chains, these bondages that are not real. They're not based in reality. They are based upon an idea or a thought or an imagination that in most cases have been given to you or imposed upon you by those external influences. And yet he says here that you will become intimately acquainted with, consciously aware of the universal truths or truth of all things, the all of everything, and knowing this truth, being aware of this truth, will make you free. Now that gives two implications. That truth, when you become aware of this truth, it makes you free. It frees you from those self-imposed imaginary bondages and constraints that we've created ourselves, but it also gives us a marker. It gives us a marker for how we can measure or discern what is true, because real truth makes you free. Any idea, thought, perception, or perspective, any doctrine that does not lead to your liberty, does not lend itself to your freedom, if it constrains you, if it binds you, if it holds you, if it puts you in any level of bondage and takes away the exercise of your will, your desire, your liberty, then that's an indication it's not true. Whatever the idea is, whatever the thought, whatever the teaching, whatever the doctrine, whatever the dogma, if it is grounded in truth, then it enhances your liberty. It enhances your freedom. It does not take away, it does not place constraints upon you, but it absolutely frees you and expands your liberty and your freedom of expression, your freedom of being as a divine, a unique expression of the all of everything that is the divine expression of God in three-dimensional forms in this earth. We are given this, another practical principle taken from scripture, this liberty that all things, that's not some things, not partial things, not just the things that some people accept and like and agree with. All things are lawful to us, even though everything may not be expedient for us. Let's unpack that for a second as we get into this conversation. That all things, there is nothing off limits for any of us. That's what I said. There are no rules and regulations or laws or prohibitions. Everything is within the periphery of our experience, should we choose to experience it. Nothing is unlawful. That means it's not bad. It's, as we like the term, what's good and what's bad. It's not bad. It's not ungodly. It's not unholy. It's not sinful per se at its core or its nature. What makes a thing bad or unholy or sinful or destructive or dysfunctional is determined and relevant to the person who is choosing the experience, which is what the second part, the B part of the verse says. While everything is lawful to me, there is no prohibition, no constraint, no rule or regulation that keeps me from it. Not everything is expedient. Everything does not serve my highest good. Everything does not align itself with the highest vision and version that I have for my experience as a spirit being human. Everything does not tend to elevate and accelerate my lived experience in fulfilling the original intent or the purpose for which I came into the earth. For this cause came I into the earth. And so everything does not align itself harmoniously with that purpose or that original intent. That then is what makes it wrong, if you want to use that terminology, relative term, for me. But because it is wrong for me doesn't mean that it is wrong for you. Because while something may not align itself with the highest version or vision of my life, does not mean that it won't align itself harmoniously with the highest vision and version of your life. And so for me, it becomes wrong, it becomes error, or it becomes sin, a missing of the mark. It is off the target, that I have somehow deviated from that which serves my highest good. But it does not mean that because it does not serve my highest good, that I can now make a blanket universal declaration that it serves no one's highest good. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Yes, it is purely subjective when we start talking about what serves one's highest good, unless we are talking about universal principles or experiences like hate and fear. Those things don't serve anyone's highest good. They are limiting principles or limiting energies that certainly tend to bind you and don't contribute to your liberty or your freedom. Okay? But all of the other rigmarole and the things that religious people get all up in arms about, whether or not you decide to have a drink or not, or whether you dance or not, or listen to secular music or not, or all of those kinds of things, or what kind of clothes you're wearing, or whether you cuss or whether you fuss, or whether you have sex, or whether you are, all of these things. All of these prohibitions imposed by religious ideologies and put out there as though they are blanket absolutes. Well, even their own Bible text tells them you cannot do so. Everything, all things. How do you argue with the word all? How do you? Well, he didn't mean all when he said all. Well, then why did he say all then? He didn't mean everything, but what does all mean? All things are lawful, but not everything is expedient. Not everything expedites my growth, my purpose, my being in this three-dimensional form. That's just an absolute, that's fact, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? So we're going to operate from that place and learn how to employ critical thinking. Now, we've spent a number of years now since we've been doing our live broadcasts and having this spiritual community that is designed to empower you on your journey towards spiritual wholeness. We've spent a lot of time over the past few years talking about and discussing to you what shapes your reality. We've talked about the thought, word, deed process and how you can create your lived reality and your experiences, how you are able to create the matrix of reality in which you live and experience. That is showing us and talking to us about what we think, and that what we think informs what we say and which informs what we do. And that in turn materializes in our three-dimensional experience, that our inner world of thought and feeling is reflected in our outer world of experience, okay, and form and experience. We've been talking about that for a very long time. We're all familiar with that. But what I want to focus in on today is not what you are thinking, but how you think. The job of any spiritual leader or any leader, period, or counselor or therapist, is not to tell you what to think, but to give you guidance on how to think. And then you employ those tools to formulate your own thoughts and arrive at the conclusions that best serve you. I'm not here to tell you what to think. That's control. That's manipulation. That's me trying to become your master and you become my servant. That's not the position that we are in. That is not the position you should ever put yourself in. Okay? The job is to teach you how to think so that you are able to arrive at your own conclusions. Hey, Carl, man, I'm glad to see you on. To arrive at your own conclusion and decide what best serves you. How you think, how you process information, how you analyze it in your mind will determine what you think. How you think will determine what you, let me say that again. How you think will determine what you think. How you process and analyze and arrive at conclusions will determine what you think, it will determine your perspective, your perception. It will determine ultimately your words and your actions as well. So it is important that we deal with the fundamental issue of how we think. Now, again, most religions run 150 million miles an hour away from this topic because they do not want you to learn how to think for yourself. They want you to simply submit to how someone else has thought and what they think. They really do not want you to begin to learn how to think for yourself, to have original thought. They much rather you live by the echoes, what you have heard over and over repetitively in your mind throughout your lifetime and experiences that now cascade echoing in your conscious mind again and again, so often that you confuse those voices and those echoes with your own voice, with your own divinity speaking through you. You confuse the voice of your mother and your father and your sister and your cousin and your preacher and your prophet and your trauma and your experiences with your own voice, that you have lived a number of years of your life not even hearing your own voice or the voice of the divine, which is God in you, through you, and as you. That is your true voice, because you are confused into thinking that the voice of your preacher, your pastor, your bishop, your prophet, your apostle, the voice of your mother, your daddy, your cousin, your sister, your brother, your auntie, your uncle, the voice of your teacher, your guidance counselor, your professor, your friends, the voice of your trauma, your hurt, your pain is your voice. But those are not your voice. Learning how to think critically helps you to cut through the minutia and slice through all of those voices, silencing them, and finally locating your own authentic voice that allows you to begin to examine and discern what is true, so that it brings you to that place of expanded liberation and freedom. Whew. Are y'all ready? This is going to be a heavy conversation, but it's also a helpful conversation. Are y'all ready? So let's talk a little more about what critical. We're not going to do it all in this one setting. We already know that. So this is part one, and we'll pick up again on Thursday, but let's get as far as we can. So critical thinking is a type of reasonable, reflective thinking that is aimed at deciding what to believe and what to do. It is a way of deciding whether a claim is always true, sometimes true, partially true, or false. Let me repeat that. It is a way of deciding or discerning whether a claim or an idea is always true, sometimes true, partially true, or false altogether. Critical thinking is that mode of thinking about any subject, content, or problem in which the thinker improves the quality of his or her thinking by skillfully taking charge of the structures inherent in thinking and imposing intellectual standards upon them. Let me repeat that last part again. Critical thinking is that mode of thinking about any subject, content, or problem in which the thinker, that would be you and I, improves the quality of his or her thinking by skillfully taking charge of the structures inherent in thinking and by imposing intellectual standards like logic upon those thoughts. Okay, let's unpack this first definition a little bit further. Critical thinking is a type of reasonable, reflective thinking that is aimed at deciding what to believe and what to do. Ladies and gentlemen, each of us have a personal responsibility to ourselves to be reflective and analytical in our thinking, to not act and move or make choices and decisions based upon impulse or outside external influences, but to take the time to be reflective and analytical, to take the time to think through whatever it is that you are considering and make an intelligent choice moving forward. Contrary to popular belief, faith is not the suspension of intellect or logic. Lord have mercy. I'm going to say that again. Faith is not the suspension of intellect or logic. Thinking is divine. Let me say that again. Thinking is a divine act. As a matter of fact, and I've made this statement for years, as those who were a part of the congregation I used to lead in Georgia will be familiar with it, and that is, you are most like God when you are thinking. Another terminology or title for God is divine mind or divine thought or divine intellect, the all-knowing, okay? The omniscient, the all-knowing. One of the aspects of divinity is the capacity of knowing everything, and that all-knowing being, presence, is not only resident in you, but through you and as you. It is you, because you are a divine representation, expression, uniquely formed in this shape in the earth. That aspect of divinity is you. You know all things. You are not consciously aware of everything that you know, but the knowing is loaded and coded in your spiritual DNA. All the answers and all the knowledge is locked away inside you. Because if God lives in you and is expressed as you, then God didn't come in you, it was not formed in you, and yet its omniscience is absent. If God is formed in you, then all parts of its divinity is formed in you as well. And that is omniscience. It's all-knowing. So the knowing of the universe is present in you. But it is not always in your conscious mind or your conscious awareness. The sound of that voice, the knowing that is present in you, is somehow suppressed and drowned out by the echoing sound of your heritage, your culture, your environment, your relationships, your family, your religion, and all these other external voices that are now echoing and cascading within your conscious mind, drowning out the knowingness that's inside of you. So what critical thinking, that first part of the definition, says is that we take the time to reasonably reflect and think, to look inward for the answers that we are seeking, knowing that the truth is loaded and coded within our spiritual DNA. It is a part of our being, that the answer is within us. So we take the time to reflectively think before making a decision, that we don't follow blindly behind the words of a preacher, a prophet, or an apostle, or an imam, a minister, or a guru, or a friend, or a family member, or anyone, but that we take the necessary time to reasonably, logically, reflectively consider, think, look inward. This is where meditation, mindful meditation, is so important, that we look inward to unlock that knowingness that is in each of us. It is a way of deciding whether or not a particular claim or idea or ideology is always truth. That's absolutism, like the truth about hate and the truth about fear. There are some absolute truths about that, okay? Then sometimes true, because what may be true today may not be true tomorrow. That is relative truth. It was at one point true that you could not fly through the air. And then the invention of the airplane came. And now what was true then is not true now. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Okay. Barack Obama is not the president of the United States. There was a time that I could say Barack Obama is the president of the United States. That was true then, but it is not true now. So that is a relative truth. It is something that is sometimes true, but not always true. So it is deciding whether something is always true, something is sometimes true, absolute and relative, and then partially true. Partial truth. Whether something contains some level of truth in it, but it is not absolute truth. I'm about to make some of my church folk real mad with me in my religious community. That would be the Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, and any other sacred text that you might want to offer. Let me say it again, I take the Bible seriously. I do not take it literally, because no sacred text, Bible, Quran, Bhagavad Gita, or Book of Tao, or any other, is absolute truth. Does it mean that there is no truth in them? Absolutely not. Just because you happen upon errors and mistakes within a particular script or manuscript or text does not mean that you throw out the entire book. The Bible has principles, practices, and patterns in it that are true. That is what it was designed for, to give us principles, patterns, and practices that we can apply to our life in helping us to make the choices that we want to make that align with our highest good. It is not absolute truth. It is not inerrant. I know I'm making some really religious people mad at me. Neither is the Quran, neither is the Bhagavad Gita. I don't have the time at this morning, and it's not the purpose of this conversation to go into and prove to you all of the different errors and contradictions and mistakes that are found in both the Bible and the Quran and the Bhagavad Gita and other sacred texts that I have read and studied and researched. There are contradictions in all of them. Even the ancient Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, has errors and different contradictions within it. No sacred text is absolute truth. And I use the term sacred because they are held as a set apart or holy or divine, but they are not absolute truth. They contain partial truth. I know this is hard for you to swallow. I know it's hard for some of you to be able to embrace, but it is an absolute fact. There are passages in the Bible that tell the exact same story, yet they completely contradict each other. In one place, it says a king was 12 years old when he began to reign. And when it retells the story in another place, it says he was 22 years old when he began to reign. That is clearly an error. That is clearly a mistake. And that's okay, because the Bible and the Quran and any other sacred text is not the word of God. Lord, I know I'm getting into some deep water, but I'm going to say it again. It is not the word of God. It is the word of men about God. Does that make it any less valuable? Absolutely not. Does it make it irrelevant? Absolutely not. But it helps us to see it and view it with clear eyes and to approach it with a perspective and an understanding that I am not dealing with absolute truth, that I am not even dealing with relative truth, but I am dealing with partial truth. I am dealing with a book that contains principles, patterns, and practices that are true, and then also observations, opinions, and thoughts and experiences from the human experiences and perspectives of the writers who composed that particular document. We have in the Christian church, we have deified the writers of a book. We have somehow made Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Paul, Moses, and all of these people, we've turned them into infallible gods who didn't have feelings and families and fears and failures and weaknesses, who didn't have emotions, who didn't have any of the human tendencies that we had, and that somehow for that brief moment when they were writing whatever particular document they were in some psychic cosmic trance, void of any human emotions, feelings, thoughts, or perceptions and experiences, and their hands were being controlled and auto-directed by the Spirit as they wrote, and they were taking dictation from God. Even the writers themselves admit that that is not the case. They say it from their own mouth. They say that this is my account of what took place, especially Luke. He said, this is my account. I'm giving you my account based upon all of the different stories that have been told. I thought that it was necessary that I give you my perspective and my account of what I have both seen and heard. Ladies and gentlemen, they were not infallible beings. They were giving us their perspective. Does that again take away the value of the Bible, or the value of the Quran, or the value of the Bhagavad Gita, or the value of the Book of Tao, or the value of any of the sacred texts that exist, the multiplicity of them around the world? It absolutely does not. But what it does do is help us to view it through a realistic lens and glean from it those things that are true and applicable to our three-dimensional experience in the earth. So, critical thinking is a way of deciding whether a claim or an ideology is absolute, always true, relevant, relative, sometimes true, partially true, containing some truth in it, or when something is absolutely false. And that's easy. There are some things and some teachings and some ideas out there that are provably false. Provably false. that require you to suspend all logic to even accept. The only way you can believe it, it's like believing in the tooth fairy. You have to just, if you at your old age still believe in the tooth fairy, you have to suspend all logic. You have to choose to accept something, a fairy tale, as true. Okay? Critical thinking, I'm going to continue, is that mode of thinking about any subject, content, or problem in which the thinker, that would be you and I, improves the quality of his or her thinking. How do I improve it? By skillfully taking charge of the structures inherent in thinking. You get to decide how you think. I know that sounds so simplistic, but for many of you that are listening to me right now, that is a profound statement, because you have not taken control of how you thought your entire life. You have been trained and domesticated to think a certain way your entire life, by your family, by your culture, by your environment, by your religion, your experiences, and you have become comfortable and complacent with it. And so you have just decided this is just the way you think. You even throw out the idea that it might also just be a universal. Everybody thinks like this. We all think like that. Anybody would think that. Anybody would think this way. Anybody would perceive it this way. Everybody would understand it like that. Well, even a fool would think X, Y, Z. Okay? Because we have been so domesticated in how to think and what to think that we have given almost a universal nature to it and thought, well, everybody must think this way. So the statement that you get to choose how to think is both profound and challenging. And I am challenging all of you that are on with me right now, all 15 of you that are on this live right now across Facebook and YouTube. I'm challenging you to take control of how you think, to improve the quality of your thinking by choosing to employ certain structures that are inherent in thinking, critical thinking. I am asking you to consider taking control of how you think by employing the skill of critical thinking to grasp and garner these particular skills or aspects of critical thinking and begin to employ them in how you process your thoughts. That's what this entire conversation is going to be based on. I am making the request of you that you choose to begin to think differently, to take control of how you think, to quit allowing your thinking or thought process to be controlled and directed by a religion, by an experience, by an external influence, by a trauma, but to take full control of how you think. To not allow anything outside of your own conscious, intentional, deliberate thought to determine how you're going to think. I'm asking you to employ these structures that are inherent in critical thinking to how you think. To take these structures, these principles, and begin to use them across the board, not just as far as in terms of religious thought, but I mean about how you think about everything. How you think about yourself, how you think about the world, how you think about the people around you, how you think about God. I want you to employ critical thinking, to use these practical principles that are inherent in critical thinking and use them as your way of analyzing and discerning for yourself what is always true, what is sometimes true, what is partially true, and what is false. That's what I'm asking you to do during the course of this conversation. By imposing intellectual standards upon everything that you are reflecting upon or considering. Does it make sense? Is it logical? We'll talk more about that in our upcoming conversation. I thought I would get through more than just the first slide here. I've got several more that I'm going to bring up, but already I'm out of time. Our hour is just about up, and I got just enough time to thank you for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Thank you for listening, to invite you to come back and be a part of the ongoing conversation on Thursday at 7:30 p.m. So that we can continue this important and critical conversation about critical thinking. Thank you so much. I guarantee you, if you'll hang with me and throughout the duration of this conversation, it is going to change your life. It will certainly change your perspective and perception and how you arrive at those places. And it will liberate you. I promise you, we're going to expand the scope of your liberation and freedom in your life beyond anything that you ever even imagined, because you will learn to be a critical thinker. And don't let anybody convince you. If anybody is trying to convince you not to think, but to just believe and accept it, even though it doesn't make sense, even though it doesn't resonate with you, that's someone that you need to be cautious of. And that's something you need to run away from. Okay, if it doesn't resonate with you, that is, it doesn't engender peace, calm, you don't feel that kinship with it, connection. If you can't logically be able to discern and understand and decipher and analyze it, if they are pushing you away from questioning, the one thing about truth is truth can be questioned, analyzed, scrutinized, doubted, and even believed, and still remain true. Truth does not require you to believe it. Truth does not require you to be unquestioned, to just accept it at face value. Truth can be analyzed. It can be questioned and doubted. It can be scrutinized. It can be dissected, because truth will always remain true. That's a fact. That's a fact. That's a fact. And that's what this entire conversation, this ongoing conversation, is going to be about. So again, thank you for tuning in. Listen, those of you who are a part of the Emerge family, you've already gotten this information. I'm excited that we were able to launch Humanities Designs and Apparel. This is the soft launch. We'll do a hard launch back. Coming up in on the 21st of this month. But right now we have a soft launch going on, and Humanities, and I'm actually wearing the shirt. I don't know if you can see that on camera. Let me put it down a little bit. Humanities. Designs and Apparel. It's my own company that I've launched, and the website is up. It is a new, innovative website that makes The entire purchasing process runs smoothly. Some of you have already gone over to check it out. Others of you, I'm encouraging you to go over and check it out. I put the website on the screen right now. This is Humanities Designs and Apparel at humanities.com. You have to put the hyphenation in there. That is the link to the website. Go over and check out all the different designs of t-shirts, sweatshirts, and hoodies that we have there. And eventually we're going to put some caps and hats there, and jackets and sweatpants, and maybe a few other things, maybe coffee mugs and a few other things. But right now we have just sweatshirts, t-shirts, and hoodies that are there. It's coming up on winter time, so you want to go ahead and get over there and look and order yours today. Go to humanities.com and check out what we have there. I would really appreciate it. Thank you to those who have already gone to the website and have already checked it out. I appreciate you. Thank you for those who have already placed your orders. I can tell you that your orders now, you will receive them within 7 to 10 business days. They will be at your doorstep. Okay. So I am so absolutely proud of this venture and grateful for all of you for your support. Likewise, today, if you'd like to support this platform, we want to give you the opportunity to do so through giving. The information is on your screen. I encourage you to give and be generous in your support of the platform, helping us to continue to grow and expand. You can use both the Cashapp or Zelle. Whatever gift you decide to give will be graciously accepted, thankfully accepted, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for always demonstrating how much you value what you receive from this platform. Now, we are also still in the midst of our 90 days of abundance. Man, it looks like some of you have really dropped out on me. I've been coming on in the morning with our morning meditation, and I'm seeing that there are very few of you that are getting up and joining in on the morning meditation. I hope that means that you are doing it in the afternoons or in the evening, and that you haven't completely dropped out. But I kind of get the feeling that some of you have dropped out. Even if you missed a day, even if you dropped out momentarily, jump back in, get started, but complete a 90-day process. Think about being able to revolutionize your financial life in 90 days, that all it costs you is time and effort. That's all it costs. That's all it costs for you to be able to experience abundance in every facet of your life. You simply have to be willing to employ and commit the time and the effort to complete a 90-day process that is guaranteed to change your financial life and your human experience in the earth. So I'm imploring you to go ahead and start again with our 90 days of abundance, a practical plan to experience the abundant life in every facet of your life. The morning meditation is on every morning at 6:30 a.m. If you are new and you want to know the guidelines, the prerequisite instructions that you need to get started, simply go over to the website, the Emerge website, and you'll find on the empowerment page, you will find the videos there with the prerequisite instructions, as well as all of the meditation principles that are there. So go over, there's the website now, it's on your screen. You can go over to that website and get all the information there, but please, please participate. Don't give up, don't give in, don't turn away from this. This is absolutely revolutionary. You can have abundant life. Doesn't cost you anything but time and effort. That's all, time and effort. Go to the website, get the information, and make sure that you participate in the 90 days of abundance. All right, guys, that is all. I'm going to get out in these LA streets. and enjoy the little time that I have left and before boarding the plane and heading back to the East Coast. I hope you've enjoyed the trip as well. Along with me, you've been able to live vicariously through the different things that I've been able to show you. And I look forward to seeing you all again on Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Until then, have an absolutely splendiferous day and make it count.